Hi, welcome back. In this episode, we'll be adding a back button to our component. So let's see what I mean. Currently, our view, our create view, we can create, we can add dot, but unfortunately, we can't back out of this view, right? The only way we can back out currently, the only way we can back out of this view is to fill up all the form and then click on create. So the same goes for update as well. There's no way of backing up unless we either delete or update the compo- the the data. What I would like to do now is to add a button here so that the parent component can listen to this. Let's have a look at the let's go to Augury and have a look at the layout of this guy. Right. So we have the update component. We chose an instance of the keyboard component. I'll add a button in here in the form. So when I click on the form and I click on the cancel, the this component, the keyboard component, will fire an event to update component, and then the update component can perform the back operation. Let's start by adding a button to here first. As usual, I'll create another branch. Hit checkout part 13, right? And let's make sure that, okay, so we got 13. Now we'll go to front end and I will open up the source code. It's under source. In here, I will be adding a button to this component. This is the keyboard component. So this is the keyboard component, the view, right? And the place I'll be adding is here. If you recall, the ng container is these two guys, right? And this is the add card. So what I'll do is this. I will first of all wrap it in a div, and then I will, oops, I will duplicate the button. Okay, let's put some space between the button. Margin right 2. Okay, I'll change this color to maybe to black color, dark. Okay, and I'll change the text to cancel, and I'll change the icon. Let's go to font awesome. Icons, font awesome icons. Okay, this is font awesome 4. So let's look at font awesome 5. Go to the icon gallery. Right, we'll go cancel, and I will use this guy, Windows close. Window close. Okay, right. So what we'll do now is this. I will add, instead of calling add card, I'll go cancel. I need to write a cancel method here, right? So when I click on this, the form will send will call a cancel method in keyboard, and then keyboard will fire. I'll create an event listener to fire. I'll create an event to fire. The update component will subscribe to that event. Let's go to the keyboard component, and I'll write the cancel method here. Let's just put it here, right? And so this is going to fire an event. I will implement the event as output right up here. I'll call the event, okay, on cancel, and this is going to be a subject. It's not going to return any value because we are just canceling. So do this on cancel. We go next. To use this method, all we have to do is for our update component to do is this update HTML component. All you have to do is, let's move this guy down here. Okay, on cancel, right? And then we can say back, right? So we can say back. So where does back come from? Back comes from the keyboard component. Sorry, update component. If you recall, update component implements the base component. Back actually comes from here. Currently, back isn't actually working correctly. So if we do this and we now try to go cancel, we will actually get an error, right? Because because we actually have to move two levels up, and back is only returning one level. So back is actually not working correctly. The way we're going to do this is like is is this. Let me just refresh this again. Every time when we enter a component, let's say so let's start again. When we enter a component from our menu, our list of component menu, what we'll do is this: we'll use the router in the base component to remember the the route that we came from. Okay, so when we click on back, we will just use the route that we have remembered uh, to navigate back to the previous level. And the way we're going to do this is like this. First of all, I will create a add a member here called previous URL, and I'll default this to a slash. Slash is basically this thing, right? Okay. If all else fails, basically, just go back to the topmost component. And the way we're going to remember the component is like this. We're going to go previous URL. We will get the router, right? Router, and then we go get current navigation, and then we go initial URL. That is the URL, the route that we came from, and then we'll just say to string. Just by way of debugging, just show you what is happening. I'll just console log out the console info, log the previous URL. And in the back method, all I need to do is just go this previous URL. So very simple, right? Let's have a look at this. So as I enter this component, so notice, so if you recall, right, the base component is implemented in a previous episode. If you cannot remember, go back, I think 1 or 2 episodes, previous episode, to have a look. The base component is actually implemented by the mainboard component. The main keyboard component, by the create component, right, and also by the of course by the update component, right. So when we come in from our first page into keyboard, that's the previous URL. And if we go into create, right, so we are going from slash keyboard into create. Notice that keyboard, and if we come into here, so we are entering from keyboard, and if we leave, notice that the previous URL is this, and we came back to the to our list of what. So this is the correct navigation that we want. We'll do the same thing for the create component HTML. We'll just go on cancel, right, and then we'll say back, right. So we can go create, and then we can go, so notice this, the previous URL, and we can go cancel. Okay, so now our cancel button is working. The only issue is this: if we let's say if we enter some data in here, let's say you perform let's say I do a modification. Okay, this is a mod. This is an update. And now if let's say and now I want to click on add card, but I accidentally hit on cancel. Okay. What is going to happen is this: I've just lost all my data. What we would really like to do is this: when I click on cancel, before I leave, I would like the router to ask me to check to see if the form is dirty. So in other words, let's go back to Augury. Before I leave update component, I would like to check if this form is dirty. In other words, has this form been updated? If the form has been updated, I would like to do a pop-up box to say that, are you sure you really want to exit? Okay. In Angular, that is called a root guard or a route guard. Okay. So the route guard can ask our form if it needs to be saved or something, right? So the route guard will either return a true or a false. A true means we can leave the view. A false means we cannot leave the view. Okay. So a route guard is a service, is a regular Angular service. Okay, but this is a special service. It is only used by the router, and so we are going to create a service here. I'm going to create under kboard. I will call it kboard route guard, and then okay, so it's here. Okay, and I'll import in. Let me just do some import first. Angular core, and I'm going to import in the injectable. Okay, I will also import in. Let's do this. I'll also import in the can. There are two methods here. There are two interfaces here. One is CanActivate. CanActivate is the guard that is checked when we are attempting to enter into a view. CanDeactivate is the guard that is checked when we are attempting to leave the view. Currently, what we are going to do is that we are going to implement the CanDeactivate guard. Okay, so I'll create say injectable, export class. I will say edit route guard, and it has to implement the CanDeactivate. CanDeactivate is a if you look at the documentation, CanDeactivate is a generic interface. For the time being, we will just say any first. Just put any here, like that, and then we will have to implement the CanDeactivate. So CanDeactivate has only one method, which is CanDeactivate method, and the CanDeactivate method has got three parameters. The first parameter is the component that we're trying to leave. Currently, the type is any. The second one is the route. And the type is activated route snapshot. Okay. And the third one is the current state of the router, and that is the router state snapshot. And this method returns a boolean, either a boolean. So this boolean will say true or false. True, if it's a true value, it means that we can leave the view. False means we cannot leave. Alternatively, we can also return a URL tree. Okay. A URL tree basically allows the guard to send the router into another view. For example, if you are attempting to enter a view, but that view requires authentication, then the can activate. For example, CanActivate route checks that you know that you need to first of all be authenticated, or first of all perform a login. Then through the URL tree return type value, we can send it to the login page. We will look at the URL tree in a later episode. If you are performing a sync operation, if you're returning a sync value like promise, right? So the CanDeactivate also support promise, and the promise returns a boolean or a URL tree. And since Angular is very big on observables, you can also return an observable type, which is made up of this union type of URL tree and a boolean and a URL tree. So the return types look formidable. It's actually not. It's just very long. So it's basically a union type of boolean URL tree, a promise, or an observable. let's start off by returning a false. So in other words, we are hard coding to say that nothing can live. That's false, right? I'll just do some console log so we can study what are some of the parameters. So I'll do console. So let's say this, and I'll just print out the comp. Okay, let's print out the comp. Uh, this is our route guide, and the way to use this is to, since it's a service, we must register it in the in our module, and you put it in the module here. So this is the provider. Here we will say edit. Okay. Okay. I need to hold on. I need to import it. That will be route guide. Edit route guide. Okay. So edit route guide. So that's a service. Now I need to say which are the routes that need this route guide. This can deactivate route guide. So I'm going to put it on create and update. So let's do create first. And the way you install it is like this. We go CanDeactivate attribute. Okay, takes an array. You can install more than one route guide. So say this route guide. This, and then I'll also add. Oops. I'll also add this to here. Like that. Okay. So what basically I'm saying is this path, when we try to leave this component, we have to check with this edit root guide, and similarly for the update. So let's see how this works. Okay. Now if I attempt to edit, let's go to the console. If I now attempt to edit, and let me clear this. If I attempt to edit, hopefully if I do this correctly, I can see deactivate and notice that this is the component. Right? Notice we didn't move away because if you remember, I've hard coded the root guard to return false, so we cannot actually leave. Right? Let's change this to true. Okay. And now if I click on this, notice that I have actually exit. Let's go to create, and I now click on this. Notice that I've actually exited. Notice that this component here is the component that we are trying to exit. So let's go to augury, right? If I click on cancel, the router, the the uh, the route guard will receive an instance of this component. What this component should do is that it should check with the form to see if it has been updated, or if the form has been updated. And if the form has been updated but the data hasn't been saved, the component should return false. Otherwise, if the form is pristine, it hasn't been touched or modified in any way, then the update component should return true. The same goes for create, right? The same goes for create. So in create, if we have entered some data, right? If we enter some data and we try to exit, okay, the route guard should receive the create component, right? And you should be able to get the create component to tell it whether it should leave or not. Okay. So currently now the route guard is not checking. We just allow it to leave. So let's see how we do this. So in here, this is where the magic happens. What we need to do is this: we need to create an interface. We need to create an interface, and then we will get the create component and the update component to implement this interface. The interface is this. We'll just create an interface called export interface. I'll call this edit route guard predicate, and then the interface has got a method called evaluate, and the evaluate will return either boolean, true or false. I'm also going to get it to return a message. Okay, the message is a message that is returned by the component to say whether whether we should leave or not. You know, just a message. Or you will see what happens afterwards. Okay. So now the can deactivate here. You add the interface, and this guy here, we will get the interface as well. Edit, route guard, predicate. Now what we can do is this. If we will say, if the component, if we evaluate a component and returns false, then what we want to do is, if we want to say confirm, we want to return confirm confirm message. Okay. Confirm, remove this. Let me just put this up here. Confirm is a JavaScript method that does this. Let me see if I can do this. Okay, so that's confirm. If I click on cancel, it will return false. If I click on OK, it will return true, right? So that's false. And if I run this again, it will return true, right? So we will display the message from the component, and then depending on whether the user clicks true or false, we will leave the route. If the evaluate returns true, and this thing flips it to false, then we can leave immediately, right? Oops. Okay. We'll see how this works afterwards. I'll come and explain this again. Now all we need to do is just we need to implement this interface, the edit route guide interface on the update component. So let me just do it here. Edit route guide predicate, right? And what we'll do is this. It has got two methods. The methods are evaluate and confirm message, like that. So, okay, error. Let's just check here. Okay, that's okay. Missing one bracket. Right. So, let's see what we are trying to do. So this is our component. This is the update component. The update component should ask this component, the form, whether it has been updated. And the way to do that is by getting a reference to the component. So this is our update view, and our update view has a reference to the control, to the form. If you let's look at the update component again. Kboard component. The kboard component exports an instance of itself as kboard control here. What we need to do is we need to get hold of this guy, and go to the board group here, this form group, and ask if the form is dirty. Okay, this is what we do. We will, since we define a reference, a template reference, we can use a view child to get access to this. Kboard, right? So this name, kboard, is this name here, right? And it will return an instance of this kboard control. So I'm going to call it kboard control here. And the kboard control is really a kboard component. Okay. Let me just move this down. Okay. Right. So now, when we evaluate, we'll just say, if it's not board group, dirty. Right. So if it's dirty, we do not want it to leave. So if it's dirty, if form is dirty, right, we don't want to leave. Okay, so dirty is true. If this is true, then we want to flip it to false. Okay, if dirty is false, then we flip it to true. This is the confirm message. So let's go to the message. You have unsaved data, okay, you wish to leave. So let's see how this works. Oops, seems like there's an error. Yep. Okay, we haven't imported view child. Okay, so view child. View child. Let's see if there's any error. Okay, no more error. So we can click on view child. Now I'm going to like maybe remove this. So now I'm going to leave. When I click on leave, notice the pop-up box come up. This is the confirm box, and notice this is the message from here. So we allow every component to customize its own message. If I say cancel, it won't leave. But if I now try to leave again, if I click OK, it will now allow me to leave. Notice that the the value is unmodified. I'll do the same thing for create. Let's just copy this guy, and we'll go to create component, and we'll do the same thing. Oops. We'll do the same thing. Okay, we will implement again. We will implement the edit predicate. Okay, so if you I now type something and now attempt to leave, if unsafe data, do you want to leave? Okay, so we will leave the bot. Okay, let's do that again. Right, so now, yep, so we can leave. And now, okay, so notice that if I don't touch it, I can leave. Okay, so what happens now is that if I click on this guy and I now say I want to update, when I click on update, notice that the data has been updated, but the form is still showing. That's because the form is still dirty, right? So notice that the board has been modified. Let me just change this. Updated. I click on update. Notice that I've got unsafe data. So if I click on here, the form is updated. So what I want to do is this. I want to, prevent this. If I perform an update, a legitimate update, I shouldn't be getting this message, right? So that's actually quite simple to fix. We go back to the update component. After we perform the update, here, after we perform the update, all we do is this. We just go this keyboard control, and then if you recall, we have a method in our keyboard control called initialize form. Let's go to initialize form and have a look at initialize form. Oops. Keyboard component, initialize form. So initialize form, where's my initialize form? Okay, initialize form basically clears the whole form, right? So let's try that again. Let's go back to here and have a look. What we do is after I've updated, I clear the form. So if I clear the form, then the form is no longer dirty, which I can now leave. Updated. Now if I click on update, I can leave. I'll do the same thing for create as well. Again, let's do create component, and the create component, I'll do the same thing. Okay. Move this. Currently, the initialize form is in finally. I'll just move it here. And then finally, I'll just remove that. Okay. So now I can add a new form, a new bot. Okay. I can now go create, and it will now, it will now allow me to get the new bot, right? And I can delete this, hopefully. So the delete works, and I can update this. That's the end of this episode of using Angular to create a Trello clone. In the next episode, what we will do is this. We're going to look at using some pre-built components. Currently, if you notice now, if I perform cancel, this dialog box is actually quite ugly. We will use a bootstrap component. We use a third-party bootstrap component to integrate the bootstrap component into our Angular application. I'll show you how to use some of these third-party components. Till then, I'll see you in the next episode. Oh, and don't forget, I'll be checking in the code as uh, uh, as the 13th branch, the branch part 13. So till next time, stay safe.